Welcome to today's episode of Healthy Soul Talk with Dr. Kimberly Thomas. And I am Dr. Kimberly Thomas. I just want to welcome you to our first series. This is our first round of podcasts that's going to be specifically focused on my why, both personally and professionally. And so I've invited a guest with me today to interview me, to walk us through this journey of my why. And here's Milton. He's a young adult that's thriving today, and he's graciously accepted to be my interviewer today, so we can go through this together. So welcome, Milton. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Let's jump into the interview. Every healer has a beginning. Let's start there. What first called you into the world of mental health?
Well, I must say that, this question is a journey, right? The question reminds me of like how I started. And so I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and I heard a lot, I saw a lot. I experienced, right, what was in my community. And I was always drawn to the emotions. I was always drawn to, like, I'm a very observant person. And so I was always interested in like how did people get to be sad? And when I saw people like in the uproar of a celebration, I was like, wow, they are really ecstatic. And so sometimes I wanted that level of happiness, but I've always been interested in the emotion, what's behind, right, the behavior that is the way that they are expressing. And so with that, I knew that I wanted to go into the industry, early on, right, late teens, going into high school, that I wanted to help people. And that was because of how I was personally responding to the devastation, the emotions, right, in the communities that I was in and what I saw.
Thank you for sharing that. Was there a moment in your life when you knew this was your path?
Yes. I can honestly say that there was one particular summer where we were all outside, and I just saw a group of people running, and I decided to go see what the hype was about. And so it was there that I saw like a circle. They had formed a circle, and as I was approaching the circle, I saw a young girl just kind of wail out in this cry. And she was just like, I want my daddy. And somebody was holding her, kind of dragging her back from the circle. And so as I saw what was in the circle, there was a man on the ground, and he was unalive, and you saw the blood there, and he had been shot. And so what stayed with me, and then to this day, is the vision of her cry. Like, I saw her face. And so for me, that was a specific moment, right, when I said, okay, I wonder how she was doing. I wondered how those around her, right, helped her through this moment, because I cannot imagine, right, how she felt in that moment, and especially as time went on and this repeatedly happened in our communities. I just really often felt like who helped them cope through life after seeing this level of trauma.
Sounds like you have a real heart for people. That leads me to my next question. Do you think that inspired you to help others heal? If not, who or what did?
That was an inspiration. And I also learned, like, because I grew up in church, I saw the spiritual part of like what defines healing, right? Like what all went into the journey of healing. And healing is not to say that like you forgot what happened to you or you feel less, impacted, but it was a way of like, how do we go on when we experience something that's so devastating, when we have transitions in life, when we have suffering, when we have, these unexpected circumstances, like how do you recover from that? And so what inspired me was truly seeing people in church, like how they gathered around community wise, and there was, if you needed prayer, if you needed, even help outside of that, so resources. I saw people, coming in saying, hey, did you need to talk to somebody? And there was always this warmth, right, that came with helping someone get through a circumstance. And so as time went on, especially when I got in high school, I just really thought about like, wow, I wanted that. Like I wanted to be a part of the system, right? Part of the puzzle, a piece of somebody's puzzle to like help them on the journey of recovery.
That's great. Now, looking back in your life, do you think your own experiences prepared you for this work?
Yeah, it did, right? And I know that we always ask like a how, right? How do I think my own experiences prepared me for this work? I am a survivor, and so you know I don't take that lightly, right? I understand that I was no different than the next person, who experienced trauma, right? And so because of that, I had to understand, I understand the depths of some levels of betrayal, some levels of pain, some levels of, okay, wow, I cannot believe that this happened to me in this particular way and for this period of time, over a period of time. And so to me, those experiences gave me a leverage. It gave me a leverage to say, like, there's a depth of a soul that gets pierced when we experience certain things in life. And so because of that, because I know what that feels like, my patience, right, that's needed to hear the hearts and the sounds of people's deepest pains, I have that, right? And I don't take that lightly. I don't take lightly the ability, the gift that God has given me to sit with someone and hear the most disparaging thing that they've been through.
That's wonderful. Healing is not a destination, it's a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What does healing personally mean to you?
Healing to me means the ability to regulate your emotions. Healing is the journey of overcoming devastation in a way that allows you to cope with what life has to continue to give you. And I mean that in the ups and the downs, right? I'm not the one that says that, once you get through something or once you feel like you've overcome something, that's it for your life, right? We know that life has its ups and downs. There's turbulence, there's also this greatness, right, that comes with life. And so for me, healing is the learning of, it's you learning like what happened to you and what it's going to take to navigate moving forward. What is it going to take to heal, to live a holistic life? What is it going to take to recover internally so that you can live externally, socially, and emotionally connect to people, even relationally? So for me, healing is the journey of recovery. Healing is that strategy, right? That strategy that you learn to use, and it can be tweaked, right? It's a flexible thing because life still be life, as they say. Even when you feel like you overcome something, there's still a journey that you have to stay on.
I agree. How do you hold space for others while nurturing your own soul?
I love that question. How do I hold a space for others while nurturing my own soul? So this requires a different level of self-care, right? And so I'm aware, and over the years I've gotten much better, especially, just being in this profession, since 2006. So I'm getting on up there with my years. I've learned that I must have my own space to care for my soul, right? I must be intentional about making sure that when I'm checked in over here, that I have a place to check out in. And sometimes that's not always been convenient. So I've had to kind of you know, figure this thing out where my body tells me when it's time to care for my soul. And I have to be attentive to that. Has it been a perfect science? No. Have there been some challenges to that? Absolutely. But one thing is for sure, I've always, and I will continue to maintain an effort. Right. And for me, as long as I have my systems in place, just as like I encourage clients, right, to have systems in place, I have to do that for myself. And because I work with what we call, you know, a trauma-based clientele, and that means that everything that I do, I've been purposed to make sure that I support those who have experienced moderate to severe trauma. And so with that comes a different level of self-care because, you know, we'll talk in later interviews, I understand what's being deposited into me. And so I want to make sure that, you know, that I can sustain myself in this profession long term because I know what I've been purposed and who I've been purposed to support.
That's nice. Now, I heard you said you've been doing it since 2006. So over the years, what part of being a therapist still amazes you?
Wow. So what still amazes me is how I see us as a community still triumphing through all that's going on around us. What really, really amazes me is like the resiliency, the bounce back that we still have even in today's time. And so I think that because that's a passion in me to like help foster that type of environment, you know, that's the amazement for me, is to see how over time, whether that's a short period of time or, you know, a prolonged period of time, I see people recovering. I still see people recovering, even in the midst of trying to get over, you know, devastation, trying to get over ruin, trying to get over, you know, what's happening in our country, in our communities, on our block, even in our homes, right? I still see people achieving mental wellness.
That's wonderful. Now, what have your clients taught you about resilience or love?
What have my clients taught me about resilience and love? They have taught me that, number one, when you have support and people are invested in your recovery, right, that resiliency is evident, it's achievable, right? And I value that. I value anybody who invites me into their space to walk alongside of them of this thing called mental wellness. And I don't take that for granted. And so, you know, they teach me a lot. My clients teach me a lot about resiliency. They teach me a lot about being humble. They teach me a lot about being honest and truthful to self and to others. They teach me a lot about even being cautious, even having boundaries, right? They teach me a lot. I experience just like they do. And so they've shown me, you know, even when it comes to the love, the concept of love, we know that we have to find ways to love people who sometimes appear to be unlovable, who sometimes appear like, you know, you don't want to either be in their life or they don't want to be in your life, but love is love. And so how do you not make yourself not love somebody? Because that causes a different level of emotional disturbance. And so we've navigated like what love looks like, whether that's from a distance or up close, or just because I'm called to love, right? We weren't designed to hate, right? And so even in the world today, we are still trying to find ways to love humanity. And so being in this field and helping the clients that I serve, and even myself being in spaces, right? Because I need an outlet too. We continuously find ways to love, to care for someone else.
Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you for tuning into this first segment of the interview. And so this was focused on the origin of the story and the heart of the work. And so check out the next part of this video to learn more about my why.